Hello, everybody. It's the Chris and Daniel show again. We've kind of gotten to liking doing these together, and I'm just kind of the tech support end of things over here, but also, I'm from Biotics Research, and we help Chris do some of this material, and I get to interject some of the silver bullets and information as she runs through the presentation. So Chris, I don't want to take over your time here, and I know everybody's time is valuable. So if you want to hop in and if you don't mind, and to the listeners out there, if I interject here or there and share some of the little silver bullets to coincide.
Appreciate that greatly. Yeah. Absolutely.
You bet.
So I'm Chris with First Step to Wellness. I am the wellness consultant here at Tompkins Family Chiropractic. And today we are going to talk about hormone balance. And some of the stresses that can cause imbalance and things of the sort. So we're going to get started. We'll start off with a little stress response. So let's say you're taking your dog for a walk along the water and an alligator starts coming out after you, right? So when our brain senses danger, it activates the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight, flight, or freeze response. Hopefully, in that case, it won't be the freeze response. And this process leads to the releasing of stress hormone, specifically cortisol, and neurotransmitters, norepinephrine and epinephrine. There are two parts to this. There's an on switch and an off switch. When the danger is no longer perceived, then our parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and allows our hormones to go back into balance and to become more normal. Okay. Now, although there are other hormones in play, cortisol is the primary stress hormone, and cortisol has gotten in my opinion, sometimes somewhat of a bad rap. It is a necessary hormone for us, and it is created from cholesterol in the adrenal glands. The benefits of cortisol actually include increasing your blood sugar from the glycogen stores that are in the liver to fuel our brain and muscles. It increases protein, fat, and carbohydrate metabolism. It regulates your fluid and electrolyte balance to help you maintain normal blood pressure. It helps to regulate the effects on and the response of stress on your hypothalamus or pituitary gland and other areas of your brain. It helps to regulate your adrenaline production. Now, the challenge is when we have prolonged exposure to stress or high level, which it will cause high levels of cortisol. And that leads to the negative health effects, such as high blood pressure, high blood sugar, increased risk of diabetes, increased risk of heart disease. It increases the visceral or AKA belly fat. Hypothyroidism can be from a decreased thyroid function, slower wound healing, which is more related to the diabetes. You're more susceptible to infections, and then of course just your overall hormone imbalance. So we're going to talk. Go ahead.
We'll get the flow. Chris and I do this quite often together, but the thing is about the balance, and
right.
I think we've all taken cortisol as a dirty word,
right?
But there are a lot of positives. But I think with today's society, in what I see in subjective response, but in laboratory, is we are so cortisol driven that there's really no balance.
Right. It does get a bad rap. So we're going to talk about neurotransmitters. They are the chemical messengers within the body. They are synthesized from amino acids, and when they're not balanced properly, we can have negative health conditions occur there also. Neurotransmitters belong to the nervous system and are produced by neurons, and they send the signals through the synaptic connections, whereas hormones actually belong to the endocrine system, and they're produced by endocrine glands and deliver signals through the blood. Now, despite their differences, it's important to have appropriate levels and balance of both of the hormones that are influenced by these neurotransmitters. And so we're focused on the following. There's 4 of them that we're going to talk about today. epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin.
Yeah, so let me share, Chris, with you.
Yeah.
This is becoming a really big topic for those that are listening out there. I just came back from a conference in North Carolina. I was out there for 5 days, and really medically minded speakers in the integrated medical world that run the big functional medicine conferences. And what you're talking about is what was a lot of this discussion. So it's kind of fun to bring it down from a 2-day conference to a 45-minute one. But the importance of this, and just as the listeners are out there, think of the gut-brain connection as this is going on, because what you're talking about in hormones and even in neurotransmitters, we just learned about it, probiotics, which I know you're going to talk about later a little bit, and how very specific probiotics affect those neurotransmitters for anxiety and depression. Mm-hmm. And the same thing goes with the hormones, and you and I will discuss Lindsay Berkson and receptor sites. Right. So there's a lot of really, really cutting edge new information here to help us all out.
Perfect. Thanks. All right. So we're going to start off talking about epinephrine and norepinephrine. Epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, and norepinephrine both influence the body by increasing our blood sugar, increasing our heart rate, and increasing the contractility of the heart, the actual how hard it actually squeezes when it's beating. Okay. Additionally, epinephrine allows relaxation of a smooth muscle in the airways. So people in respiratory distress are often given epinephrine to help open up their airways. Norepinephrine can allow the blood vessels to narrow and actually increase blood pressure. So if we're having low blood pressure issues, they can use the norepinephrine to actually increase the blood pressures. Now, chronic stress can result in those levels being either deficient or in excess, which of course can have those negative effects. Now, deficiencies of either one of these can contribute to anxiety, depression, fibromyalgia, hypoglycemia, migraine headaches, restless leg syndrome, and sleep disorders. That's a deficiency of either one of those. Excess levels of these can contribute to high blood pressure, anxiety, excessive sweating, heart palpitations, and headaches.
Do you notice that anxiety is in both the deficiency and in the excess?
Yeah.
What we're really learning about is the balance of all of this. And we are, again, out of balance, really seeing that. Exactly.
All right. So now the next two, dopamine and serotonin, are powerful neurotransmitters that influence both mood regulation and concentration. So whether levels are high or low, it's all about the imbalance that can affect and be detrimental to our health. So dopamine is responsible for pleasure and satisfaction. So a lack of dopamine is associated with a lack of motivation, low energy, and poor digestion. When it's triggered by stress, though, it can actually help us. It can help us to perceive and process whatever the threat is. It helps us to figure out an appropriate response. It helps to guide us to avoid an unpleasant situation. It helps the body to learn and remember to avoid that particular stressful event. And it'll redirect blood flow by dilating those blood vessels in certain tissues by inhibiting the adrenaline release to those tissues. So it inhibits the noradrenaline, which would constrict the vessels. This is actually going to inhibit it to allow those vessels to relax. Okay, now we're going to go to serotonin, which, unlike dopamine, serotonin does not have a stimulatory effect at all. It's more responsible for calming and invoking a positive mood. It also helps us to regulate our appetite, our sleep cycle, and it helps to suppress pain. So it makes sense that these deficiencies are most closely linked to depression.
Yeah, I mean, so we think of dopamine, I always go to the any addictive behavior is a low dopamine need, meaning if I'm a smoker, dopamine's low and it gives me a dopamine high. Potato chip addiction is a dopamine need. And so actually we use a lot of dopamine supplements to help curb addictive behaviors. And then many of you know about serotonin out there, as that's the mood disorder nutrient. We don't have serotonin, we are not in a happy state.
Right. All right, so how stress levels are impacted. So our body responds to stress dependent on the type and the amount presented by releasing the appropriate amount of these stress-fighting chemicals. This stress can be physiological, physical, or psychological. The origin may be internal or external. Its manifestation can be either mild, severe, or anywhere in between. Stress hormones are protective during stress as they act to maintain our vital systems, our vital organs, by increasing blood flow to the organs, increasing oxygen, and increasing our sugar, so that our bodies can best prepare on how to cope with that impending stress. Some adverse reactions, however, can occur when stress triggers are at a high level response. This is seen most often during times of chronic stress, if you're just in a situation that just does not change, when the hormones don't have time to properly rebalance, and that can actually lead to disease. So the degree of hormonal response and the amount of stress hormone release depends on the following: the type and degree and the duration of that stress, how you perceive that stress, your life experience with that stress, your age and gender, how frequently that stress occurs, and your previous experience with the stress and the context and the environment of that particular stress.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing more of it. I have the luxury of covering 2 states with practitioners, and I was in North Carolina. There were 225 doctors, and kind of this is the theme of what they're seeing. And these were big name physicians that, like I said, lecture around the world, and we're seeing the stress factor. And what are we doing for it? Pam Smith and MD showed how effective the work that you're doing, Chris, is so helpful for people. That we need to bring down that response, or we have this low grade degradation at so many levels.
Yeah. Well, and that's the nutrition response testing is the game changer, being able to find out what organ is affected the most at that moment, find out what is stressing that organ specifically, and then being able to apply the corrective nutrition. I mean, I can't imagine doing this any other way now that I know how to do that,
Yeah, absolutely. And your work is amazing. It really is. We're seeing that out there. So those that are listening in, I mean, you're at the right place. You're listening to the right person. You really are. Because 30 years in this industry, I know the work Chris is doing, and I can attest to it. So don't worry and don't question so much. You're doing the right thing, and allow her to, peel the onion. I call it the layers of the onion of health. It's not just like one answer. It's peel that layer, and Chris's work allows you to get there.
Thank you. All right. So now we're going to talk about sex hormones. We have 3 primary: estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Sex hormones control some of the most influential processes in the body, including pregnancy, puberty, regulating the female's monthly cycle, menopause, hair growth, our skin complexion, muscle density, and fat storage. These hormones can complement each other or function as opposites, which is why it's so important that they're present in the right ratio. And during chronic stress, again, we have that imbalance of hormones that can turn into a difficult situation pretty quickly. So we're going to talk about these individually. So we'll start off with estrogen, which is needed in higher amounts for females. Its primary function is growth and development, but it affects nearly every body system. So some signs of estrogen deficiency are going to be the brain fog, the hot flashes, depression, memory loss, headaches, vaginal dryness, irregular periods, urine leakage, sleep problems, and bone loss, which can lead to osteoporosis. Some symptoms of Excess estrogen, having too much estrogen, are going to be heavy menstrual cycles, breast tenderness, increased PMS, premenstrual symptoms, fibrocystic breast disease, ovarian cyst, abdominal weight, anxiety and irritability, water retention, and increased triglyceride levels. So in short, estrogen is one of the most important hormones for women in terms of health. Any imbalance, whether it be deficiency or excess, can cause a host of issues.
Yeah, if you don't mind if I interject here a second, because this is a big story, and for so many women in their health, the balance again. And one, we've talked about it before, is with this excessive or deficient, which I don't often see too much of a deficiency unless we're in the menopausal years, but the excess for sure, from all the estrogen, like a chicken breast is loaded with estrogen.
Right.
So we're getting all those xeno type estrogens in too. That's a really good reason for doing the NutriClear Plus detoxification program to clear that out.
Right.
But then, as I mentioned earlier, we have Lindsay Berkson, who has written 21 books on hormones. And she came to us to develop some products to help people, yes, receptor detox and hormone balance and protect, to help people get through these phases in life. But again, it's about cleaning up that receptor site. So if this is the receptor site, we have the hormone can't attach well. It's dirty. And so she developed a product to clean that up, the receptor detox. And then there's the hormone balance to protect, to help balance. You know, we have these circadian rhythms of hormone, and especially if you're doing any exogenous hormone, to help balance it out and you get a better response. Those two are huge new products for us. I've seen Dr. Berkson now lecture around the country at 3 different locations with massive response, because she has, again, 21 books on hormones. She kind of knows what she's doing. Right. She's 73 and has more energy than I do. I wish I had some of it.
Yeah, she does. She's full of energy. So actually, one of the things that I try to do is I try to take all the supplements as they come out. And I actually ended up back on bioidentical hormones recently. And I started these 2 at the same time. And I really feel that it has just sped up the process of the hormones getting in there and doing what they were supposed to do.
Glad you're seeing
so
that.
I've been really impressed with them.
Glad you're seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, testosterone, which most people like to think it's a male hormone, but really we can't do without it either, us women.
Thank you for saying that. I'm going to interrupt because this is so important to me, because in my years of doing this, so many people, I see so many doctors are just kind of dabbling, and what you're offering is, especially with these products, is really figuring it out. But 30 years ago, when I came out of school and I had an osteopath I worked for, when a woman came in with fatigue, the first 2 things he did 30 years ago was look at thyroid and testosterone levels. A little bit of testosterone for a woman goes a long ways.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and one of the risks with low testosterone is bone density. So again, right, you're at risk at osteopenia, osteoarthritis, things like that. So some symptoms that are associated with testosterone deficiency are going to be that decreased sex drive. Yep. And again, we have increased depression and anxiety, fatigue, inability to concentrate, decline in memory and cognitive skills, decreased muscle mass and strength, loss of body hair, decreased bone mass, and an increase in the abdominal or pectoral fat, and sleep issues. Again, those all affect women just as much as they do men.
Yeah, and that's often from the top of your lecture here, is that cortisol, that stress hormone, is stealing that pathway to not make testosterone.
Right.
So if we can balance that cortisol, then we can naturally produce more testosterone.
Right.
We're seeing this at younger and younger ages due to chronic stress.
Right. Yep. Okay, so let's get into some causes of hormonal imbalances. And some of these are going to be, to me, when I read through this, I was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense now, but we still do it. Under eating, right? so many fad diets that want you to restrict this or that.
Yeah.
And just that fluctuation of weight loss and then gaining that weight back and the back and forth, that in itself can cause the hormonal imbalance. Because again, you're not getting that time to reset and balance itself.
Yeah.
Eating the wrong foods, many foods negatively impact us, our hormones. Stress, as we talked earlier. Toxic overload is a big one. So environmental toxins, household toxins are a big one. Your fabric softeners, your plug-in air fresheners, things like that are taxing your liver. And when the liver is overburdened, then it can't manage that excess hormones. So then, of course, that's going to lead to higher levels of the hormones. High body fat percentage. Too much body fat can result in a low testosterone, high estrogen. So your ratio becomes imbalanced due to the excess fat tissue. And then aging, progesterone decreases faster than the estrogen in women, and the testosterone levels decrease at a faster rate than the estrogen level does in the men. Again, leading to just more imbalance.
Yeah, and I'll say, we've seen the studies that when we do think, oh, I'm going to go on a diet and restrict my calories,
right,
the thyroid goes, whoa, what are you doing to me?
Right.
You've taken away my caloric intake. And the thyroid actually slows down at times, and we don't lose the weight. Right. So it's about shifting the lifestyle to not eat carbohydrates as much. Eat more protein, more vegetables, but feed at regular intervals throughout the day, smaller portions, and that creates a much healthier weight management program.
Right. All right. We're going to go into signs and symptoms of these imbalances. So there's two problems that occur when our hormones are out of balance. Number one is uncomfortable symptoms. Basically it affects how you think, how you feel, how you act. Number two is an increased risk of illness, such as depression, Alzheimer's, heart disease, diabetes, osteoporosis, and certain cancers. Both outcomes affect us negatively in our quality of life. So some very common symptoms of hormone imbalance are infertility and irregular periods, unexplained weight gain or weight loss, depression and anxiety, fatigue, insomnia, low libido, changes in your appetite, digestive issues, hair loss, or thinning. And I mean, there's more. That was just the kind of the top.
I lost it somewhere in the program there. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, there.
I've not been able to figure it out.
That one may not be related to hormones, but
I think
you never
right.
know.
At some level, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
All right. So who would think that food would matter, right? Towards hormones? But it does. Like you had mentioned, too much soy. Soy is a high estrogen food, and soy, kind of like high fructose corn syrup, it kind of gets added to everything that's processed.
Yeah.
Right? So avoiding processed foods would make sense. So some common mistakes that negatively impact hormone balance include too few fatty acids, too little fiber in our diet, too many carbohydrates, too much soy, too many unhealthy fats, not enough healthy fats, too much sugar, and too many processed foods. So there's a few things that we can add to our diet besides taking out the carbs and the bad fats and things like that. We can add flax seeds, which bind to our estrogen receptors and help excrete excess estrogen from the body. Cruciferous vegetables, your broccoli, your cauliflower, your kale, cabbage, Brussels sprouts.
Very important right there.
Yeah, they actually prevent estrogen-related cancers.
No.
They help to eliminate excess estrogen due to their high fiber content.
Yeah.
You have lentils. In addition to just a good source of protein and fiber, they contain zinc, which helps raise your testosterone levels. Sweet potatoes are high in B6. B6 helps the liver supports the liver in detoxification, again, freeing the liver up to be able to handle the excess estrogen in our bodies. Now, perfect world, right? We wouldn't be eating all the bad stuff that we do, but that's easy, easier said than done. And something else I want to mention when it comes to the digestive issues that you can get, again, with the nutrition response testing, I'm checking your digestive enzyme point, I'm checking your hydrochloric acid point. We test for fatty acids to see if that's something your body, it's all done here with me. We try to streamline your protocol and make it very customized.
Yeah, and let me add in, there's a lot of literature on the cruciferous vegetables that's been around quite a while. And I think we forget that. It's fill that plate up with the veggies.
Right.
Very protective for estrogenic issues. So
well, yeah, but a common response that I get is, "Oh, I can't eat those because they make me gassy." Well, you're missing something.
Right. And I'll share with you, there was a speaker, a friend of mine in Spain, he said gas is a gift.
Right.
Because it's telling you that the microbiota, the probiotics, the microbiome is out of balance. When you add healthy foods, you should be able to handle that.
Right.
But your microbiome shifts in about 3 days, depending on your diet. So if you've gone to a McDonald's program, your microbiome shifts to digesting a McDonald's program.
Right.
And those are inflammatory pathways. I learned that this weekend again. We are causing inflammation. We are causing hormonal imbalance by that program.
Right.
So yeah, people will get gas often on those vegetables because the digestion isn't set for that.
Right. Exactly. All right. So a hormone balancing diet. So foods we eat, they're going to either work with us or against us. And overall gut health is just very important. So foods that we can consume to help with that are the healthy fats, which we're going to get into a little bit,
Yep.
Probiotics, digestive enzymes, supplements, and adaptogenic herbs. So we'll start off with the healthy fats. We'll get into that. Avocado, that saying an apple a day keeps the doctor away?
Yeah.
I think it should be an avocado.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's like a superfood.
That's part of my dinner tonight right there.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Had it on my egg this morning. So
Yeah.
So our body needs various forms of fat to create hormones. And again, on those restrictive diets, again, we're just causing that, we're contributing to that imbalance of hormones. We've heard about medium chain, long chain fatty acids, saturated fat, cholesterol, but fats are essential. They're the building blocks of the hormone production. They help to keep inflammation level low. The right fats keep inflammation levels low. They boost our metabolism and they promote weight loss. So you're aiming for about 15 to 30 grams of healthy fats in a day for stabilization and production of stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, to keep those in balance. In addition to that, omega-3s, the fatty acid, is important for cell-to-cell communication in the brain. But for them to work at their best, we need the adequate amounts of omega-6s, but we need the right omega-6s. Yeah. All right. So our American diet, the standard American diet, SAD is the acronym, which is kind of fitting. It's full of the 6s that we want to avoid. So we want to avoid safflower, sunflower, corn, cottonseed, canola, soybean, and peanut oils. Those are ones that you want to avoid because it's the wrong omega-6. Okay, so some good sources of your anti-inflammatory omega-3s would include your coconut oils, your avocado oil, your flaxseed, chia seeds, walnuts, grass-fed butter, and wild-caught salmon are just some examples. But again, the benefit of an avocado a day is just, it improves overall everything, heart health. It's a superfood.
The brain is fat.
Exactly.
We don't eat enough good fats, and
Right.
Eating good fats also suppresses appetite. You feel
right. You're fuller
longer.
Right.
So definitely, I remember a friend of mine said, "Well, if I eat fat, I'm going to get fat." Not even close.
Well, if you eat the wrong fat, sure.
Eat the wrong fat, yes.
But I actually had a client that came in for a heart sound, and he was in his 30s. He had had a heart attack, and he went vegan. And he came to me and he was like, I can't remember where I set my keys down. Now the guy's in his 30s. That's not normal.
Yeah.
And I said, well, are you vegan, like really vegan? Because you've got your, your commitment. He's like, no, I just did it because I had a heart attack and I needed to lose weight. And I said, just add an egg a day.
Yeah.
And 4 weeks later, came back for a repeat. And he's like, oh my gosh. I said, you're starving your brain.
That's the beauty of good nutrition.
Yeah. I mean, you're just starving your brain. You can't do that. We gotta feed ourselves the right stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of the right stuff, probiotics. There's a lot of just stuff you can do naturally. You don't necessarily have to be on a probiotic as long as everything else is in balance. You can get, and as long as you don't have a dairy or gluten intolerance or allergy, kefir is great. Bone broth, sourdough bread, low sugar kombucha. I never say that word right. Kimchi, sauerkraut, natto, miso, and apple cider vinegar. And you want to aim for at least 2 servings a day of any of these. And in addition to high fiber foods such as chia seeds and flax seeds, they will naturally feed the bacteria that is actually in your gut, keeping the healthy bacteria healthy.
Yeah, and that's important. I'm big on the kimchi and things of that nature, mixing it up, diversify the diet. So for those of you listening out there, if you didn't get the list, reach out to Chris again to get those, because we're very familiar with probiotics. Became big in the market once Activia actually hit the market as a global. That's when it really exploded in the news. But now we're seeing so much more, as I said earlier on, about the gut microbiome and hormones and neurotransmitters. And taking one probiotic is helpful, but there's so many strains in the body of different probiotics that feeding the food that the healthy ones in your body already feed off of is much, much more effective. Not to say don't take a probiotic,
right?
But I'm saying make sure you add the foods that feed those probiotics as well.
And typically when my clients, when we finally get into the maintenance phase and they've made those dietary changes, they do really well without any additional probiotic.
Yeah.
Unless something comes up in an acute situation and they didn't come to me and they ended up on an antibiotic, and then they add in that probiotic to help rebalance it.
Exactly.
All right. So digestive enzymes. Again, that's something that I test for every time we do a nutrition response test. Is I test your enzyme point. So the body naturally produces enzymes for the breakdown of food. However, some people have trouble, again, which is why we test, digesting fats and benefit from an enzyme with lipase to help metabolize better. So the enzymes are going to help you break down the carbs and the proteins and the fats. So if your body's lacking that enzyme, then I test you, we find the right enzyme for you, and then we move on and you're able to digest the right fats, the right carbs, and the right protein. Much, much easier without the gas.
Well, that's the term, rest and digest. And what we talked about early on with the stress or, eating on the run in the car or whatever, that is not resting and digesting. So the enzymes don't work and we get gas and bloating no matter how good we eat even.
Right.
So if you are eating some kimchi and eating a healthy lunch, you still need to sit and relax and chew your food and digest.
Right.
But because of the stress, we're seeing a reduction in, healthy enzymes being released and digesting well.
Yeah, exactly. All right, supplements. Let's see. Magnesium is a big one. Yeah. Now, I have a lot of people, that when we start with the nutrition response test, I try to keep the protocol small. So we don't necessarily start off with magnesium and D and zinc and things like that, but they are definitely necessary. Our food today is not nutrient dense like it used to be. So we absolutely need to be adding magnesium. Magnesium is a micromineral needed for numerous functions within our body. It helps to calm the nervous system and prevent production of excess cortisol. So magnesium deficiencies are very much so on the rise just because of the food, again, the food density just isn't there. Vitamin D is also D deficiencies are on the rise. And it acts as a hormone inside the body that helps to keep inflammation levels low. It also works to regulate estrogen levels in the body. It's termed the sunshine vitamin because our body creates it when we're in the sun. The problem is we're lathering up with sunblock, so we're not getting the vitamin D that we need. I'm not against a good, healthy sunblock, but going out in the sun for 15 minutes without any is going to be extremely beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
We also have your B vitamins. They play a vital role in the body because there's so many different Bs, 8 of them. It's recommended that you take a B complex to ensure proper intake of each one. B vitamins are responsible for liver detox. Again, it said B6, right? Helps to detox the liver so that it can focus on actually breaking down excess estrogen. They're also good as mood elevating effect, nerve function, and maintaining the estrogen balance. While it's possible for you to be getting all of the required nutrients through your diet, it's rather difficult. So using supplementation is pretty common.
Yeah, let me share, if again, you don't mind if I interject a couple little pieces that reminded me there. We made a magnesium powder designed for stress. We had it in Belgium for 5 years, a few years ago, before we brought it to the United States. And most people think, well, I can't take magnesium because it loosens up my bowel, which most magnesiums do. Right. This is a different form of magnesium, and it's 400 milligrams per serving, which is a lot of magnesium, but it doesn't loosen up the bowel. But we also have B vitamins in there. And so magnesium helps make GABA, which is a calming neurotransmitter. But magnesium has about 230 different needs in the body. It's a primary mineral for heart, relaxes the muscle, but it's a wonderful anti-stress formula. But then we added the B vitamins in there. And there are studies on B vitamins taken throughout the day caused less anxiety in the work environment. That's that stress response we started out at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So that's a really nice formula. I'll be really honest with you. I take it almost every day. I drive in Phoenix traffic, and we live in society with the phone and everything else. And then vitamin D we've heard about it for the past couple of years, especially from an immune standpoint. And but it's also a very strong anti-inflammatory as well. So those two are kind of foundational nutrients in my program that I recommend to people for sure.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So now we're going to get into adaptogens, basically herbs. So adaptogens are a unique class of healing plants that help restore imbalances and normalize the physiological function in the body. For example, ashwagandha, medicinal mushrooms, rhodiola, and holy basil have been studied and proven to offer the following benefits. They improve our thyroid function. They lower cholesterol naturally. They reduce anxiety and depression. They reduce brain cell degeneration. They stabilize blood sugar and insulin levels, and they support adrenal gland function. Ashwagandha in particular can be extremely effective at balancing hormones and can also help overcome adrenal fatigue. If effects on cortisol, stress tolerance, and internal stress responses, ashwagandha has been studied for decades. Holy basil, which I have ashwagandha. I've used that a lot. I'm working my way up to herbs, I have to admit.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
It can be a little intimidating. But holy basil also helps to regulate cortisol levels, making it a viable natural remedy for anxiety and emotional stress. Additionally, studies reveal hormone imbalance related to chemical stress from pollutants and heavy metals can be restored with holy basil.
Yeah, that's a great herb. Not everybody uses it, but seems to be very effective to bringing down that response. Not everybody fits the same mold, as you know.
Right.
So these are the beauty of the work you do is you find what fits that mold.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And something else to say is herb-wise, you can get ashwagandha anywhere, but right. You really want to get a high quality of any herb in order to get the effect, the positive effectiveness. You don't want to end up having an adverse reaction to something because of something, an additive or whatnot. So
let me share with you very important piece on that. We have our own laboratory in-house, and I see my screen got locked up, but I think you can hear me.
yeah.
We have our own laboratory in-house, and a lot of the global supply of ashwagandha has gluten in it.
Right.
So we look for that because we are a 100% gluten-free company. And we also can map when we get something like ashwagandha in, we can map and look for the effective component of that plant. And you're absolutely correct. Supply and demand, they're growing things too fast to try to get them to market, and it doesn't have the effective components in them. So it is, not trying to promote what I do or have, but it is a buyer beware industry. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even, I'll get people say, well, I can get your products on Amazon. I'm like, you can. And I'm not sure how, because according to the companies, it's not allowed. But then they'll say, oh, well, they sent me a bottle and it was broken because some of the glass bottles. And I'm like, right, because they don't take back products. So someone bought it and sold it on Amazon. Yeah. Or it's expired or something like that.
It is a buyer beware industry. And if you're doing this for your health, I mean, I don't know, just one man's perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So one of the last things we're going to add here is essential oils, which is kind of how I actually got into natural stuff. It's kind of funny, besides my own health crisis. But I like oils, but now as I've furthered my education, I do a lot with homeopathy. And for me, essential oils can actually antidote homeopathic remedies. But we will go over a few of the oils that are beneficial to hormonal balance. Clary sage is a big one. It helps to balance estrogen. Fennel just helps to relax your body, improves digestion. It's a really big digestive oil.
Yeah.
Lavender promotes the emotional balance, relaxation. It's good for anxiety, depression, stress.
I think we all know about that one.
Yeah,
Right. Everybody's got something lavender.
Put it on your kids' feet so they sleep at night. Yes. Sandalwood triggers peaceful feelings and results in overall reduction of stress. Thyme oil improves progesterone production and helps to balance hormones naturally. So if you have anything else, frankincense, I don't recall the hormonal impact on that, but I know it has a good antidepressive, just overall improvement body-wise.
Yeah, and it's loaded with good polyphenols in there. It's very strong, very strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that is it, unless we have any questions that you've come up with. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me, and again, putting up with my not being favored on this side of the camera. I'm used to being on the other side of the camera, but I appreciate you guys hanging out with us today. And Daniel, it's always a pleasure. You're always a wealth of information, and I appreciate it greatly.
I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Okay, take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.